Most travelers assume Vietnam's eVisa is quick and automatic. Just submit the form, wait a couple of days, and you're ready to fly. But every year, many visitors discover delays only when they're already at the airport, forced to change flights or even cancel parts of their trip. By the end of this video, you'll know the real eVisa processing timeline in 2026, why delays happen even when applications look correct, and how experienced travelers plan ahead to avoid stress, extra costs, and those last-minute surprises. I've seen these mistakes happen many times, and honestly, they're easier to avoid than most people think. So, here's the thing about the official timeline versus real approval time. This is where many travelers feel confident, and honestly, that's exactly where problems start. Most websites and guides repeat the official message that Vietnam's eVisa takes about 3 to 5 working days to process, so people just assume approval will arrive quickly and predictably. In reality, approvals often take longer than expected. Many travelers receive their visa in 4 to 7 business days, sometimes even more during busy periods. Over time, I've seen plenty of visitors arrive stressed because they planned flights based on the fastest timeline instead of the realistic one. The safer approach is to treat the official timeline as the minimum, not the guarantee, and build extra time into your plans so a delay doesn't disrupt your trip. But the real confusion usually begins with something most travelers misunderstand: what actually counts as a working day. This is where many travel plans quietly fall apart, because travelers assume every day after submission counts toward approval time. In reality, Vietnam eVisa processing only happens on working days. Saturdays and Sundays don't count, and neither do Vietnamese public holidays, when immigration offices stop processing applications entirely. So if you apply on a Friday, the clock basically pauses over the weekend, and your application may not even start processing until Monday, pushing approval into the middle or end of the following week. Many travelers only realize this when approval hasn't arrived and their departure date is getting close. What works better is submitting early in the week and avoiding periods around major Vietnamese holidays, so your application moves without interruption. But even when timing looks fine, delays usually come from something smaller. Tiny application mistakes that travelers don't notice at all. Most delays actually come from mistakes travelers don't realize they've made themselves. The application feels simple. So many people submit it quickly and assume everything is finished. In reality, small errors often force applications back into review. A single wrong digit in the passport number, a photo that doesn't meet size or background requirements, or entry dates that don't match travel plans can all slow approval or require corrections. I've repeatedly seen travelers discover these issues only when approval takes longer than expected, even though they thought everything was correct. What works better is slowing down for 5 minutes before submission, double-checking passport details, travel dates, and photo requirements. Those small checks really prevent the processing clock from effectively restarting due to corrections. And this is where problems begin to cost real money, because once timing slips, flights and hotel plans often become harder and more expensive to change. Timing matters more than most travelers expect, especially if you're applying during Vietnam's busiest travel periods. During peak seasons like summer vacation months, major holiday periods such as Tet, and other high travel times, the number of eVisa applications increases sharply. At the same time, government offices may close or operate with reduced staff during holidays, meaning fewer applications are processed each day. The result is a backlog that quietly stretches approval timelines beyond what travelers planned for. Many visitors don't realize this because their trip dates look fine on paper, but processing simply slows due to higher demand and fewer working days available. What works better is applying well ahead of peak seasons, so your visa is approved long before the rush. And this is exactly where flight plans start getting affected, because once approval doesn't arrive on time, travelers suddenly have to deal with rescheduling tickets or adjusting arrival dates. This is the risk many travelers underestimate, especially those who assume the visa will arrive just in time before departure. Every year, travelers submit their eVisa application 3 to 5 days before flying, believing the official processing timeline will work in their favor. But if approval is delayed even slightly, airlines will not allow boarding without a valid visa. I've seen many travelers stuck at check-in counters trying to refresh their email, hoping approval arrives while airline staff wait, sometimes ending in expensive flight changes or canceled trips. What works better is treating visa approval as the first step of planning, not the last. Getting approval well before departure removes the risk of paying rescheduling fees or losing non-refundable bookings. But even when approval finally arrives, many travelers don't realize another issue can still cause problems, because having a visa approved doesn't automatically mean everything is correct for entry. Receiving the approval email feels like the problem is solved, but this is where some travelers run into trouble they never expected. Mistakes sometimes appear on the approved visa itself, often because incorrect information was entered during the application. A wrong passport number, misspelled name, or incorrect entry dates can cause problems at airline check-in or immigration on arrival. Many travelers don't review the visa carefully after approval, assuming everything must be correct if it was issued. What works better is carefully checking every detail as soon as the visa arrives and requesting corrections if something looks wrong, while there is still time before departure. A few minutes of checking can prevent stressful situations at the airport. Because when timing gets tight and approval problems appear, some travelers start looking for faster solutions, trying shortcuts that don't always work as smoothly as they expect. When approval is taking too long, many travelers discover that faster visa services seem to be available online, promising quick turnaround times. These expedited options are usually offered by third-party agencies, rather than through official government processing channels. In urgent situations, some travelers do manage to receive help through these services, especially when departure dates are very close. However, results are not officially guaranteed, and processing still depends on government approval behind the scenes. What works better is treating expedited services as an emergency option rather than part of normal planning. They can sometimes help, but relying on them adds extra cost and uncertainty compared to simply applying early and avoiding the rush altogether. And honestly, part of the confusion comes from traveler expectations, because many people compare Vietnam's system to other countries where online visas are sometimes approved much faster, leading to unrealistic assumptions about processing times here. Traveler expectations are often shaped by experiences in other countries, and that's why Vietnam's process sometimes feels slower than expected. In several destinations, eVisas or travel authorizations can be approved within hours or even instantly, so travelers assume Vietnam operates the same way. But Vietnam's system still includes manual verification steps for many applications, meaning approvals take longer and depend on processing capacity rather than automation alone. This difference creates confusion, especially for visitors who booked flights expecting rapid approval similar to other countries. What works better is understanding that Vietnam's process simply moves at a different pace, so planning needs to reflect that reality rather than assumptions based on previous trips elsewhere. So instead of hoping approval comes quickly, the safer approach is to plan your visa timing around realistic processing expectations, which removes uncertainty and keeps the start of your trip stress-free. Here's the approach that removes visa stress almost completely for travelers coming to Vietnam in 2026. The safest strategy is to apply for your eVisa at least 2 to 3 weeks before departure, even though official processing is faster. This buffer protects you from delays, application corrections, or holiday slowdowns. At the same time, double-check every detail before submitting: passport number, name spelling, entry dates, and photo format, because small errors are what usually cause timing problems. It also helps to avoid submitting applications right before Vietnamese public holidays, when processing pauses. And once approved, keep both digital and printed copies of your visa ready for airline check-in and arrival. If you remember only one thing from this video, it's this: most Vietnam visa problems don't come from complicated rules. They come from late timing and small details overlooked too early. Once your visa is approved in advance, you can safely book flights, hotels, or tours without stress. I've added useful booking links in the description that many travelers use to compare options and avoid overpaying. A little preparation now saves a lot of trouble later, and you'll find more practical Vietnam travel guidance here whenever you need it.